So we're reading in Canto 1, and we'd reached page 7, line 240. From line 221 onwards, Sri Aurobindo has been speaking about the resistance that humanity presents to the divine grace. And he says those great messengers who come, they are like a glory of lightnings traversing the earth scene, crossing over it. But then when they've passed away, their sun thoughts are fading, darkened by ignorant minds. Even their work gets betrayed, and the good that they've brought and the teachings and understanding, it gets turned to evil. The cross is their payment for the crown they gave. This is a reference to Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who came and offered himself to uplift the whole of humanity. But human beings killed him on the cross. So those great messengers, they come and they go, only they leave behind a splendid name. We remember that wonderful name. And it's as if a fire, a great burning meteorite has come, and that fire of aspiration has touched men's hearts, and then it has moved on, just as the dawn goddess moved on. And only a few have caught flame, caught fire. And those few, have risen to greater life. So that is a general statement that Sri Aurobindo makes about the great saviors. And now he's going to speak about Savitri again. I'll read on from line 240. Too unlike the world she came to help and save. Her greatness weighed upon its ignorant breast, and from its dim chasms welled a dire return, a portion of its sorrow, struggle, fall. To live with grief, to confront death on her road, the mortal's lot became the immortal's share. Thus, trapped in the gin of earthly destinies, awaiting her ordeal's hour, abode, outcast from her inborn felicity, accepting life's obscure terrestrial robe, hiding herself even from those she loved, the Godhead, greater by a human fate. A dark foreknowledge separated her from all of whom she was the star and stay. Too great to impart the peril and the pain, in her torn depths she kept the grief to come. As one who, watching over men left blind, takes up the load of an unwitting race, harboring a foe whom with her heart she must feed. Unknown her act, unknown the doom she faced, unhelped she must foresee and dread and dare. The long foreknown and fatal morn was here, bringing a noon that seemed like every noon. For nature walks upon her mighty way, unheeding when she breaks a soul, a life, leaving her slain behind, she travels on. Man only marks, and God's all-seeing eyes. Even in this moment of her soul's despair, in its grim rendezvous with death and fear, no cry broke from her lips, no call for aid. She told the secret of her woe to none. Calm was her face, and courage kept her mute. Yet only her outward self suffered and strove. Even her humanity was half divine. Her spirit opened to the spirit in all. Her nature felt all nature as its own. Apart, living within, all lives she bore. Aloof, she carried in herself the world. Her dread was one with the great cosmic dread. Her strength was founded on the cosmic mights. The universal mother's love was hers. Against the evil at life's afflicted roots, her own calamity its private sign. Of her pangs she made a mystic, poignant sword. A solitary mind, a worldwide heart, to the lone immortal's unshared work she rose. We start this side. Yes. Suresh, you will begin.
To unlike the world, she came well and safe. Her greatness
Wade
upon its ignorant breast, and from its dim
chasms
veiled a dire return. A watching of its sorrow struggle for to live with grief, to confront death on her road. To mortals, Lord become to immortals share.
Yes. So this is about Savitri. She's so very different from this world that she's come to help and to save. And Sri Aurobindo says her greatness, this greatness that she's brought with her, It is like a heavy weight on the ignorant breast of the earth. And if you put a heavy weight on something, something will come out. It will get compressed. So out of the dim chasms of the ignorant breast of the earth, these different, a chasm is like a crack or a split. It happens with volcanoes. They, from the center of the earth, liquid rock comes up, and it comes up, and it comes up, and it comes up. And if it forms a kind of plug at the top of the volcano, it will come up and come up and come up, and then suddenly it will blow, and all that lava and rock will come pouring out because it's blocked. So in the same way, this greatness of Savitri is weighing heavy on the ignorant breast of the earth, and something is coming out. A dire return, a terrible response to all that greatness that she has brought with her to help and save. It offers her a portion, a share of Earth's sorrow, Earth's struggle, Earth's fall from its original divinity. So she has to live like a human being. She has to live with grief. She has to confront death on her life's road. This is the lot of the mortal, our destiny, because we are subject to death. We have to live with grief and face death on our road. She's an immortal, but she's accepted this same earthly destiny. The mortal's lot became the immortal's share. And that's what she's facing now on this morning when she knows that Shraddhavan must die on this very day. She's waking up and knowing that today is the day when he will have to die. Bhavan.
As trapped in the ring of earthly destinies, awaiting her ordeal's hour abode, outcast from her inborn felicity, accepting life's obscure terrestrial road, hiding herself even from those she loved, the Godhead greater by a human fate.
This is Savitri. She's a divine being. By accepting to be on earth as a human being, she's becoming greater than her original divinity. Professor Arindam Basu has come here in the very early days, before we had any buildings. He gave us a wonderful talk about this line, the Godhead greater by human fate. She's trapped. Savitri is trapped by the earthly destinies, what it means to have to live on the earth as a human being. And Sri Aurobindo uses this word jin. Jin is short for engine, and it's used for many different kinds of machines, but it's also used for a trap, a very terrible trap. I think that at the time when Sri Aurobindo was at school or university in England, this kind of trap was made illegal. The landowners used to put it in their woods and in their fields, so that if any of the local villagers came to try and catch a rabbit, or a bird for their supper, for their children, they'd get caught by this terrible trap, which probably would break their leg, and they couldn't do anything. They would just have to wait until the gamekeeper would come and open the trap, and then they'd be taken to court and maybe sent to Australia or something terrible. No, so you can laugh, but it used to happen. No? That was the worst thing they could do, was send them to Australia. So like that, Savitri's trapped. She can't move. No? She's just waiting for her ordeal's hour, the moment of the great test and trial, just like that poor poacher waiting for the gamekeeper to come and get him. She's outcast, cast out from her inborn felicity, from the bliss that she was born with. No? We read about it last time, the proud and conscious wideness and the bliss she had brought with her into the human form. Now she's thrown out, cast out, exiled from that bliss, because she's accepted the obscure terrestrial robe of life on earth. It's like a dress that she's put on, and she's hiding herself. She's not revealing her divinity, even to those who are closest to her, those she loved. There she is, trapped, bearing, waiting for her, the hour of her ordeal, the Godhead, the individual divinity who has become greater by accepting a human fate. Sri Aurobindo is going to tell us about her greatness. Sarojini.
A dark knowledge separated her from all of whom she was the star and scale, too great to impact the peril and the pain. In her torn depth, she kept the grief to come.
Yes. So she is separated from all the people around her by the fact that she knows in advance, foreknowledge, knowing in advance. And Mother says that if we all knew what the future is going to bring us, we probably couldn't go on living. No? It's the greatest test of Savitri's strength is that she knows that Satyavan must die today. No? So that dark foreknowledge separated her from all the people around her, all those for whom she is the star, the guiding star, and the stay, the thing that keeps them steady. She's not going to share that foreknowledge with them. She's too great to impart the peril and the pain. She's not going to share that danger and the pain of knowing the danger in advance. She's keeping all her grief, all the grief that will come to them also, in her torn depths. She's suffering a great deal inside, but she keeps it all hidden there. Alice.
Okay. In her torn depths, she kept the grief to come. As one who, watching over men left behind blind, takes up the load of an unending race, harboring a foe, whom with her heart she must feed, unknown her act, unknown the doom she faced. Unhelped, she must foresee and dread and dare.
Yes. He says, yes, thank you. He says she's like a person who has been left as a guardian over people who've become blind. Somebody who has to take up the whole load of responsibility of a race that is unconscious, unwitting, means without knowledge, without knowing. She's like that. I don't know what Sri Aurobindo is alluding to here. It must be an allusion to something. So, but she's like that. She has to take up the whole load, the responsibility of humanity. And she has to harbor a foe, an enemy. She has to hold within herself an enemy whom with her heart she must feed. This reminds me of something from Greek history about the young boys in the city of Sparta. They were brought up to be really tough warriors. Sparta, they were not interested in art and beauty and culture. They brought up their kids, also their girls, to be tough warriors and to be courageous and never to show when they were feeling pain or fear. And there's a story about a Spartan boy who had found a young fox, and he wanted to take it home, perhaps to keep as a pet, but he had it hidden in his shirt, and that fox was biting him, that little fox biting him until he bled, and only in that way he was discovered. He didn't utter any sound, but only because they could see that the blood was coming. He hadn't shown the pain that he was. So it's something like that. She's keeping here this enemy, her grief, and she has to feed that grief with her heart. But she mustn't, nobody must know about it. Unknown her act. Nobody knows what she's facing, this terrible doom of the death of Satyabhan. And she has no one to help her. She's unhelped. She has to do this all alone. She has to foresee, to know what is coming. And she has to bear that dread of what is coming. And she has to have the courage to do that. To dare means to have courage to do something very, very difficult.
Shraddhavan, can you tell anything about the reason that Savitri is holding it behind?
She doesn't want to share this knowledge with Satyabhan or with his parents, because she knows and her parents knew, but nobody else knew. So when we come to book 7, where we see her reaching this moment again, there it is said, she had to bear all this alone. She didn't want those parents to suffer. She didn't want Satyabhan to have to suffer this foreknowledge. She had to carry all that within herself. And in a way, this is what is making her greater, having to do this alone. The great are strongest when they stand alone, it says in book 6.
That can be said by the mother also, for the mother also.
Yes, surely, yes, she had to do that, no?
Some of the things, terrible things which are going to happen.
Yes, yes. Kamala.
The longed-for known and fatal morn was here, bringing a noon that seemed like every noon. For nature walks upon her mighty way, unheeding when she breaks a soul, alive, leaving a slave behind. She travels on, man-worthy marks and God's all-seeing eyes.
Yes. So she has known for a long time, she's known for a whole year, 365 days, that this morning was going to come. This fatal morning, the morning that would bring the death of Shraddhavan. So that long foreknown, known in advance, this fatal morning has arrived, it has come. And it brings, or it promises, a noon, a middle of the day, that seems like every noon. It's not really different from any other day, no? Because nature just goes on her way, she doesn't care. Nature walks upon her mighty way. She doesn't pay any attention, unheeding, it means without paying attention, when she breaks a soul or a life. She just moves on, leaving the dead behind. Only human beings notice, and God's all-seeing eyes. God notices everything. Jesus said he notices even when a sparrow falls. So, God's all-seeing eyes. Mila.
Even in this moment of a soul's despair, it is grim rendezvous with death and fear. No cry broke from her lips, no call for aid. She told the secret of her wound to none. Calm was her face, and courage kept her mind.
Yes. So this is really the moment as Savitri wakes up on this morning. This is the moment of her soul's despair. We read last week, no, that in vain now seemed the splendid sacrifice. She's come to give a great gift to humanity, but now Shraddhavan's going to die, and it all seems to be in vain. So this is the moment of her soul's despair. Her soul is having to meet death and fear. A rendezvous is an appointment in French. Yeah? This is a grim rendezvous. It's very dark and terrifying. But no cry broke from her lips. No call for aid. She doesn't ask for any help, and she doesn't tell the secret of her woe, of her suffering to anyone. In fact, she doesn't allow anybody to see that she's suffering. Calm was her face, and courage kept her mute. That she doesn't have to blurt it all out and tell how terrible it is. Samadashan.
Yet only her outward self suffered in sorrow. Even her humanity was half divine. Her spirit opened the spirit in all. Her nature felt all nature as its own.
Yes. So it's only the outer human part that is suffering and struggling. No? She's a human being, but this humanity of hers was half divine. Her spirit opened to the spirit in everything, a universal opening, no? And her nature feels one with all nature. In Book 7, we shall read about how she comes to that state. Yes. Tone.
Path, living within, all lives she bore. Aloof, she carried in herself the world. Her thread was one with the great cosmic thread. Her strength was founded on the cosmic minds. The universal mother's love was hers.
Yes. So she's living in the forest, not meeting many people, and she's also apart from those few people that she does meet, because she's living within, deep within herself. But she's carrying within herself all lives. She's aloof, in a sense. She's separated, she's at a distance, but she's carrying the whole world in her. So this dread that she's feeling now, this is not just her own personal feeling. This is it's uniting her with the great universal fear and suffering. And she's able to bear that because her strength is based on the universal strength. And she's carrying within her the love of the Mother of the universe. That is why she's here, why she has come as a human being, because the universal Mother's love was hers.
Shraddhavan, before you tell about her spirit, her nature felt all nature has its own. Where she explained Book 3 in Savitri.
Book 7.
Book 7. This?
Yes.
Okay.
At the last canto, Canto 7 of Book 7, and the last page, this is described.
Okay, thank you. Book 7.
Patricia.
Against the evil at life's afflicted roots, her own calamity, its private sign. Of her pangs she made a mystic poignant sword. A solitary mind, worldwide heart, to the lone immortal's unshared work she rose.
Yes. So this is how Savitri gets up in this special morning. So this pain that she's feeling, she's turned it into a weapon, into a sword with which she wants to attack the evil at the afflicted roots of life. This is an image from Nordic mythology. They have this image, wonderful image of the world tree. And there at the roots of the world tree of the universe, there's a terrible serpent, a worm, which is chewing away at the roots. And that is why there is all the suffering and pain and imperfection in the world. So Savitri wants to attack that serpent, that evil, at the afflicted, it means suffering, the suffering roots of life. So her own calamity, the dreadful thing that's happening to her, the death of her beloved husband, is only her private, personal sign of that evil that's there at the afflicted roots of life. It's just her sign. It's actually like that with all of us. We feel our personal pain, but that personal pain is just a private sign of the cosmic suffering. So she's aware of that. So of her pangs, the pains that she's feeling, she has made it into a sword, a mystic, poignant sword. Poignant means sharp, but it can mean sharp also in the psychological sense, something that makes you feel pain. So the pains that she's feeling because of this ordeal of knowing that Shraddhavan must die, she turns that into a weapon that she will use to try to change this evil at the roots of life. So Sri Aurobindo's described her to us as being aloof and apart, a solitary mind, but she's also got this worldwide heart of the universal mother. Now she rises in the morning, she gets up to the unshared work of the lone immortal. She has no one to help her. She has to do this work herself. Andres.
At first life grieved not in her burdened breast, on the lap of earth's original somnolence, inert, released into forgetfulness, prone it reposed, unconscious on mind's verge.
Yes.
Obtuse and tranquil, like the stone and step.
Yes, thank you. So this is the life force. When she first begins to wake up, that is not grieving, it's not feeling suffering in this breast where she's carrying all this burden. The life is asleep there, as if asleep on the lap of Mother Earth. I have my book on my lap. The life is sleeping on the mother's lap like that. Of Earth's original somnolence, that sleepy unconsciousness of matter. So the life too is inert, it doesn't move. It's allowed to forget, released into forgetfulness. It doesn't have to remember everything. Her life force is lying there prone, flat, unconscious, on the edge of mind. It's not yet conscious and awake. The life force in her is obtuse and tranquil, like the stone and star. Obtuse means dull or blunt. If you've studied geometry, you will know about acute angles, which are sharp and pointed, and obtuse angles, which are
More than 90 degrees.
more than 90 degrees. Yes, exactly. But we use it in a psychological sense to mean dull and stupid or unconscious. So the life force in her is like that, obtuse, and because it's obtuse, it is tranquil, it's at peace in the same way that material objects are at peace, tranquil, like a stone or a star. They don't grieve. Narendra.
In a deep cleft of silence, twixt two realms, she lay remote from grief, unsown by care, nothing recalling of the sorrow here.
So this is why the life force is like that. She's in a cleft. It's again like a chasm or a canyon, an opening, a deep cleft where everything is silent. It's a kind of crack or division between two realms, the realm of waking consciousness and the realm of sleep consciousness, when you might dream. She's in between consciousness, between sleep and waking. A deep cleft of silence between these two countries. She's lying far away from grief. Care, anxiety, worry is not sawing at her. It happens in the morning, we wake up and something starts sawing away. You know what a saw is, that we use to cut wood. Yeah? Anxiety may keep reminding us of something that has to be done or has to be seen to. That's very worrying. But there's nothing like that. She's in this silence. She doesn't remember anything about the sorrow here in our waking world. Lela. Then
a slow, faint, remembrance, shadow-like moved, and sighing, she laid her hand upon her bosom and recognized the closed and lingering ache, deep, quiet, old, made literal to its place, but knew not why it was there, nor whence it came.
So at first she's in this deep cleft of silence and she doesn't remember anything. But then some slow, faint remembrance moves like a shadow. And she sighs, she lays her hand on her bosom because there's a pain there. She's recognizing that close and lingering ache that's been there a long time, deep, quiet, but it's old. It's made familiar, natural to its place. That pain has been there every morning as she woke up for a long time, this pain. But as she first begins to wake up, she doesn't remember why it's there and where it has come from. It's a wonderful description of waking up, how the body wakes up before the mental consciousness does. I think we'll stop there for today.
So I have a mathematical question. Is there any reason why she chose Shraddhavan in the first place?
Yes.
We would like to...
Yes, the story is that when she reaches marriageable age, none of the princes of neighboring countries, nobody comes to seek her hand in marriage because there's something so powerful about her that their humanity feels repelled. But her father is quite sure that her life partner must be waiting for her somewhere, so he tells her that she will have to go out and find him. And he tells her that you've got the guidance in your heart. Definitely you will recognize that person when you meet him. So she goes out and looks for him. So that's described here in Canto 4 of Book 4, The Quest.
Is there a story of past life or something by particularly him, Shraddhavan? And she said only him, nobody else.
Well, this is because of his symbolic significance. He's Satyavan. He's the soul that is carrying the truth of being within itself. This is his symbolic meaning. He's the soul. So he is the human being who represents this particular power in the story, in the legend. We read the author's note, no?
But I mean, all souls are like that. All souls, for that matter, are the same.
Yes, but this this is part of why Sri Aurobindo recognized that this is not just a story, that this is part of a symbolic myth, that these two people, she is the mother and he is the soul, so they have to be partners, and she has come to earth specifically to rescue him. You know? So we're finding intertwined in the poem the legend part and the symbol part. So when her parents tell her, oh, Narad says he's going to die, you must go and look for somebody else, she says, I cannot. This is the one I have chosen.
Because in mythology, normally there's a reason given why.
That's true, that in the
why
old
he fought, why he was
stories.
born, or why she married, and
Yes,
all these things.
that's true. In Mahabharata, it's often like that.
All Ramayana, everywhere. Like we don't understand, and they say this happened because of this.
Yes, because of
life,
something in a
activities.
previous life. Yeah. So, of course, Sri Aurobindo does refer to that also in Book 5, when they meet, that they have been together life after life after life after life. Always together. So, those who want to read, we can go back to line 241. Too unlike the world she came to help and save. Her greatness weighed upon its ignorant breast, and from its dim chasms welled a dire return, a portion of its sorrow, struggle, fall. To live with grief, to confront death on her road, the mortal's lot became the immortal's share. Thus, trapped in the gin of earthly destinies, awaiting her ordeal's hour, abode, outcast from her inborn felicity, accepting life's obscure terrestrial robe, hiding herself even from those she loved, the Godhead greater by a human fate. A dark foreknowledge separated her from all of whom she was the star and stay, too great to impart the peril and the pain. In her torn depths she kept the grief to come. As one who, watching over men left blind, takes up the load of an unwitting race, harbouring a foe whom with her heart she must feed, unknown her act, unknown the doom she faced, unhelped she must foresee and dread and dare. The long foreknown and fatal morn was here, bringing a noon that seemed like every noon. For nature walks upon her mighty way, unheeding when she breaks a soul, a life. Leaving her slain behind, she travels on. Man only marks, and God's all-seeing eyes. Even in this moment of her soul's despair, in its grim rendezvous with death and fear, no cry broke from her lips, no call for aid. She told the secret of her woe to none. Calm was her face, and courage kept her mute. Yet only her outward self suffered and strove. Even her humanity was half divine. Her spirit opened to the spirit in all. Her nature felt all nature as its own. Apart, living within, all lives she bore. Aloof, she carried in herself the world. Her dread was one with the great cosmic dread. Her strength was founded on the cosmic might. The universal mother's love was hers. Against the evil at life's afflicted roots, her own calamity its private sign. Of her pangs she made a mystic poignant sword. A solitary mind, a world-wide heart, to the lone immortals unshared work she rose. At first, life grieved not in her burdened breast. On the lap of earth's original somnolence, inert, released into forgetfulness, prone it reposed, unconscious on mind's verge, obtuse and tranquil like the stone and star. In a deep cleft of silence, twixt two realms, she lay remote from grief, unsawn by care, nothing recalling of the sorrow here. Then a slow, faint remembrance, shadow-like, moved, and sighing, she laid her hand upon her bosom and recognized the close and lingering ache, deep, quiet, old, made natural to its place, but knew not why it was there, nor whence it came.